Well, we've had 0-0s, Golden Point, Michael Buffer, more tries than you can shake a stick at. And we've got to do it all over again this weekend. The Betfred Super League is back, and so is the last tackle. So here we go, loads to talk about over the next hour and a half or so. 6 games to get stuck into in round 2, all of round 1 to digest, plenty more as well. And who better to have alongside me than the voice of rugby league for 30 years, Eddie Hemmings, and the voice of pretty much anyone that'll let him on telly at the moment, Kyle Amor. And just before we get stuck into what happened in round 1 in the Betfred Super League, we've got an announcement to make here at the Sportsman. We can confirm that our Betfred Challenge Cup coverage will continue into the 4th round, and we have got an absolute belter for you. Friday the 14th of March, St Helens versus the Leeds Rhinos, 8 o'clock kickoff. This is the only place you can watch it live and exclusive on the Sportsman Rugby League. So join us for that one in a few weeks' time. But until we get there, plenty of Betfred Super League action to look at and get stuck into. Gents, we'll drill down into the details of what happened first, but Eddie, how good to have it back.
Fantastic, it really is. I mean, the first night game on Thursday was just the headline grabber. It was absolutely fantastic. But as you say, great to see it back on the screens again. Great to see the stadiums getting to near full. I mean, the opening night attendance was apparently a record attendance, which was fantastic for Wigan, and a great game that followed. And just to have it back, you know, I mean, what do you do on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday if you're not watching the Super League? Nothing.
It's fantastic, wasn't it? Kyle, I got to Wigan at about 6 o'clock, pulled into the car park, walked over the bridge, last Wigan Chapel outside, which was brilliant. Went in, the Lathams performed, which was brilliant. Michael Buffer came out and introduced the teams, which was some sort of weird rugby league fever dream. And then we got the first 0-0 since Boxing Day 1993. It was just everything about opening night was just different this year.
Yeah, it was, and credit's got to go to Wigan for facilitating all that. Obviously, there was a big Vegas theme, given what's happening in 2 weeks' time. You know, Michael Buffer being there, I was stood up in the gantry just laughing and thinking, is this actually, you know, is he really happening? You know, but it was, and the game itself was brilliant. You know, me and Eddie were just talking about before that. You know, sometimes those low-scoring games can be, you know, a bit dull. That certainly wasn't. I thought where the fitness levels of both sides and where the skill was as well. I think there was only about 5 errors in the whole game. I thought it was a real tick in the box. It wasn't a game. That sort of game and the war of attrition is something you normally see towards the back end of the year, but we had it in round 1, and you're right, the first 0-0 in Super League since it started, and yeah, Gareth O'Brien's boot, ultimately the difference a couple of minutes into Golden Point. Brilliant all round.
And how good is he? How good is Gareth O'Brien? He does it consistently. Did it for Salford, keep him in the Super League in the £1 million match.
Yeah,
you know,
he's transitioned, hasn't he, from that full-back role back into the halves. I know he's played there previously, but he's got the 6th jersey this year, which shows you how they intend to use him. There was a spell in that game, 16-minute spell when the ball was in play, 71 minutes total ball in play time. There was a really, really low penalty count as well. For rugby league, for anyone, but for rugby league purists, the defensive side of that game, Eddie, unbelievable.
It was a little bit like watching something from the NRL mid-season, wasn't it? Because they always say defence wins matches. The first 0-0 scoreline in Super League history. Not the first 1-0, though, in Rugby League history, because Steve-O on our podcast this week, with the help of Ian Proctor, the guru. If you want to know anything about Rugby League, ring Ian Proctor. And Steve-O rang him. 1-0 wins in history for Dewsbury in 1977. He would mention Dewsbury, wouldn't he? They beat York 1-0. Nigel Stevenson, not his brother, he dropped the goal. 1979, Workington beat Warrington 1-0. Boxer Walker with the drop goal. And in Australia, 1973, and it was Newtown against St George, and a fellow called Keith Wilson dropped the goal. So there you are, a history lesson from me and Ian Proctor and Steve-O today. But fabulous. It was a fabulous game, and to see that the drop goal in Golden Point extra time. I mean, it wasn't a fluke. It flew over. It was fantastic.
Yeah. And to continue on from the kind of Michael Buffer boxing theme, Carl, it did have a little bit of a feel of a heavyweight fight, didn't it? Going through the rounds, the slugging at each other. You think, right, we're 4 or 5 rounds in here. Someone's going to break. Someone's going to go down. 6th round, 7th round, it's got to come soon, something's got to happen because they're knocking bells out of each other. And then you get into the last 10 minutes and you go, we could be going the distance here. And there was a real sense, I felt it in the ground with about 10 minutes left, of a kind of collective thing of, this might be 0-0, you know.
Yeah, no, there was a couple of key moments where I thought in the game. I thought there were, and this isn't taking anything away from Lee. I thought they were largely in Wigan's favour. There was an opportunity where Jay Field just has to release that ball to Wardle. It's a 3v1, and he decides to take it himself, and a huge chance gone begging there. But I also thought right at the end there, when Harry Smith, there was a chance for him just to have a crack at one point, and he starts to do a crossfield kick, and then I think Lachlan Lamb gets his hand to it. So, but I just thought the game itself was brilliant to watch. It really was. And again, touching on Lee, I thought David Armstrong at the back looks like when the field dries up, he's going to be a real handful. And also Tessie New on that left centre. I thought he had a brilliant game, as did the right edge back row in Ethan O'Neill. You know, a guy we'd not even heard of before Super League, playing out for I think it was Burley. He was playing out for Burley Bears, and did a great job on Wigan's up and coming poster boy, Junior Nsemba, or what a talent he is. But really good from Lee, and a lot that they'll be bouncing into for this week.
First win for Lee against Wigan in Super League. There's another bit of history.
Oh, yeah.
And first win, I understand, this isn't from Ian Proctor, so it's probably wrong, the first win away against Wigan for 42 years. I mean, a night of history. And the thing that impressed me about the whole event was everyone was sort of open-mouthed. What's this doing? What, a 0-0 and then a 1-0 in Rugby League? It never happens. And it gets coverage all over the place. GB News, I don't think they even know that Rugby League exists. Paul Coyte, on Friday morning, led the bulletin. I call it a bulletin, it's normally happy birthday, and whose birthday is it today? He led the bulletin on GB News. Rugby League got a mention on all the channels because of that one game. Fabulous. That's what we want.
And that scoreline's something you probably see for, Wigan Latics, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You'd almost be forgiven for thinking it was the football, but it certainly wasn't. It was our game, and Eddie's right. It captured a lot of good headlines for us.
We'll move on from that game. We could talk about it for hours because it was unbelievable. We move on to Friday night, and unexpected results kind of continued on from that theme. And I know Castleford got beaten in the end at Golden Point, but very few people would have had them to take Hull KR all the way.
Yeah, definitely not. Obviously with what Hull KR, their progression and improvement that they've shown over the last couple of seasons, obviously last year's grand finalists and the signings that they've brought in, added to the fact that Castleford were they were awful the week before in the Challenge Cup over at Odsal. So many people could be forgiven for thinking that was going to be all a one-sided contest, but obviously Danny Maguire had got his message across to them before the game, and there's a lot of sometimes when you lose a game, it's hard to sort of focus on positives, but I think for Castleford they come out of that, although a loss will still hurt in round one, but I think they come out of it as with a bit of progression in them, I think.
And then Eddie Hull FC, very, very few people have tipped them to go to the South of France to get a result in round one. It's not the kind of Catalans team in their pomp that we've seen from previous years. They're very much a developing side with a lot of new signings in there, but even so, from where Hull FC were at the end of last year, that's a huge progression.
Oh, massive. I mean, they were awful last year, weren't they? I mean, Hull FC, they shouldn't be finishing where they finished at the end of last season. They're too big a club for that. And if the game progresses as we all want it to progress, you've got to have a good couple of teams in Hull. We only had one last year. Looks like we might have two this year. We need Wigan going well, Saints going well, Warrington and Leeds as well. But hey, John Cartwright came in, and I remember talking again to Steve about him. He said he will get them fit. John Cartwright is a disciplinarian, and he wants them fit, and they'll run their blood to water for him. Blimey, they did, didn't they, in Catalan? You would never have predicted that 12 months ago. You probably wouldn't have predicted it last week, that Hull would go there and win. It puts Steve McNamara under a bit of pressure, I think, don't you? He's so early on. I mean, they weren't very convincing in the Challenge Cup.
But they weren't convincing last season either, Eddie, were they? So I think when you
add... They didn't make the playoffs, did they?
Yeah, no, I think when you add them sort of ingredients together, there's no wonder why, early doors, again, it really is early doors, isn't it? But already, if Catalan were to lose again, that pressure starts.
Well, I did that Challenge Cup game against Halifax with you, and we said at the end of it they will improve, but there were some warning signs in there of what's to come in terms of the error count and just how numb they looked, blunt they looked in attack at times. There were some positives. Dick Cotrick was outstanding, but something hasn't clicked into gear yet there, and there's loads of time to get it right. Steve McNamara's a very good coach. I'm sure he will get it right, but it isn't that kind of hit the ground running Catalans that we've seen in the last few years.
No, and you're right to mention some of those players. When you look down their roster, that team has to make the playoffs, I think.
Well, they will improve. I wonder how much the injury to Sam Tompkins has affected things. You know, has he put a bit of a cloud over the club at Catalan? What on earth he's come out of retirement for, I don't know. You'll be next. What on earth he's come out of retirement for, but he has come out of retirement. But you know, I just hope everything turns out okay in Catalan, because that is so important again for the game, that we have a strong team in the south of France.
They've got the two young French halfbacks in there, haven't they? I know Kiri's in there, but it's just not quite working for them, has it? Do you know what I mean? It's not there yet. So there's plenty for Catalan to work on.
Wakefield marking their return to the Betfred Super League and win against Leeds. It won't be a huge surprise to a lot of people that Wakefield are far better than the last time we saw them in Super League, but will be competitive this year. But watching that Leeds performance, it was almost as if someone had stuck a DVD of last season on at one point. It was like a very, very familiar pattern.
Yeah, which is again, I'm not going to say concerning, but you know, that obviously that game probably meant a bit more to Wakefield than it did to Leeds. And again, it sounds stupid, I've said it a number of times, round one everybody should be chomping at the bit, ready to go. But you know, for Wakefield, a brilliant season last year. They've got the backing of Matt Ellis and his family. They've been able to assemble a squad that Darryl Powell feels is not only just about making up numbers, but actually wants to improve Wakefield and get them further up the table. And I just think Wakefield bounced into that game just probably a little bit more hungrier than the home team.
You mentioned we need a good Catalans, Eddie. There's a strain. Super League feels a slightly odd place for not having a successful Leeds after the dynasty that they built for a long time.
Very much so. I mean, you know, the glorious dynasty has gone. We all know that, and maybe a bit like Man United in many ways. The rebuilding programme just hasn't got going at all. But their old failings of last season appear to still be there, and I think Brad Arthur's got a massive job on his hands. Wakefield, though, I mean, Darryl Powell will be thrilled to bits because he's reinventing himself, isn't he? He left Warrington under a little bit of a cloud. Didn't quite work out for him, although it started brilliantly but then fell away badly. You know, I hope both Leeds and Wakefield do come good, but Wakefield could be the fairy story. Could they do a Lee in 2025, what Lee did when they first came up? Are they on the way to Wembley, Wakefield? There you go. I wonder, you know.
Well, some of the signings they've made, it would not surprise you to see them go, you know, deep into this season as competitors. It's a good squad. It's probably not quite the squad Lee had assembled. I don't know if we knew it at the time when Lee first came in. Some of the signings
most of Lee are playing elsewhere now, though, aren't they? Most of that squad, they're not there anymore.
I just thought Lewis scored some great tries. You know, you look at the tries that he scored against Leeds. The ball movement through the middle of the field out. You know, it looked like a. You know, I wouldn't maybe go as far as it, but it looked like it had Darryl Powell's, you know, sprinkle of magic that he had at Castleford in 2017 over it. The way they were moving the ball and the freedom that they were being able to do it. No, plenty of good stuff.
Yeah, he's back to his roots, Darryl, isn't he? He's gone home almost. Gone home back to Wakefield. And again, is it their first win against Leeds ahead only for 6 years? Another little great start for Wakefield. Can they keep it going? Fingers crossed.
Right, gents.
Here we go. The elephant in the room.
Tinfoil hats on.
Right, okay.
Look, I don't want to spend the whole show talking about this because there's so much positive stuff to talk about, but we've got to address it. There's so many opinions knocking about, so much he said, she said around the Salford situation. The reality of it is, Kyle, none of this is good for anyone. No,
and you know, we had a little sort of chat amongst ourselves before we began filming, and one thing that we were all in agreement was is it's an absolute mess, and it's not a good look for the game. It's not a good look for any stakeholder in the game, and it needs sorting out pretty quickly. Really, there is a real threat, obviously, this weekend. You know, could it end up being a similar team that faces Leeds Rhinos? Hopefully not, because nobody wants to see. Although Eddie liked the fact that he's seen a lot of tries, 15 tries, and so look. I mean, for me, I want to see competitive rugby. I want to see two teams that have worked so hard in the pre-season, locking horns and going at it, and being on merit for the 2 points when they leave the stadium. And it just wasn't really a great look.
It probably is worth pointing out at this stage, because this story does seem to change every 10 minutes, that at the point of recording, we're still at the stage where the restrictions haven't been lifted and Salford face only being able to field 1.2 million their salary cap. What that 1.2 million looks like,
Yes.
we don't know, and that is the contentious point, isn't it? Of course, by the time this goes out in a couple of hours' time, who knows what the situation will be. But
a shambles.
yeah, it's
an absolute shambles. I watched it myself and I thought, this is going to be 100.
Yeah.
I was 18 points short. Thing is, you're right, people love to see great tries, and I thought on the day, this is awful, what an advert, what's going to happen to the points difference at the end of the season. Saints have got the big leg up. I don't know why the Rugby League didn't say, and Super League say to Salford and St Helens, we're not playing this game because it's going to damage the image of the sport. The game is off. Salford, you can see the 2 points, and it wouldn't be as damaging as it is, I don't think, today. I've thought about it since. When I was at Sky, we had a legendary head of sport called Vic Wakeling, and we had a couple of one-sided, and blimey, you'll know, Kyle, it's in the commentary box.
It's hard.
As the 15th try goes in, what are you going to say about that one that you didn't say about the 14th, 13th and 12th? And Vic called us in, he said, listen, people love to see great tries being scored. They love to see the action, they love to see the speed, the skill and everything else. All right, it was against an academy stroke reserve side, I get that. The BBC's viewing figures that they've published aren't that bad. There was 400-odd thousand, dropped down to 300-odd thousand. So some people stayed with it because they were watching some great tries being scored. And Saylor, 4 tries, he's made a name for himself already.
Yeah.
All the end of season gongs that could be handed out, they could all go on the back of this match that we saw last weekend.
A final word on this situation, Carl, before we move on. Eddie uses the word damage a couple of times in what he's just said, and actually I think the situation that we're in now is damage limitation, because it feels like we need to get through this situation in the next week, 2 weeks, however long it takes. Buying a rugby league club isn't and shouldn't be easy. We've got to make sure this is done properly. There is a scenario where it is done properly, and all of a sudden, Salford off the field are as strong as they have been in a very long, long time, and that is what we all want to get to, right?
Yeah, and I think from a little bit of my understanding is that they're where the problem lies. There's a process that they've got to go through, and particularly when foreign money is being used, there's a vetting process that has to go through. It can't just be sorted out overnight, and hence why the problem on the eve of the round 1 of Super League, that this is why, from what I'm understanding, is where the problem lied. Now, how long that process or how quickly that vetting process can be done, we'll probably know by what we see on the weekend. If it's been done beforehand, then we're up and running. If not, then we might be under 1.2 million again. But there is a big point there that Eddie made about at the end of season gongs, and let's not forget St Helens. They made the playoffs last year on points difference. So Catalan lost out on points difference. Now they're 82 plus already. That could usually take maybe 4 or 5 games to get
top
that.
of the league.
Top
of the league after one match.
Well, so there is a bigger thing. Hopefully we're not talking about that coming into the season.
Well, we can't be. We can't carry on talking about this forever. And one final point from me. They played a stronger team against Midlands Hurricanes in the Challenge Cup the previous week. 13 of those players didn't appear.
Well, hopefully that's the thing, isn't it, going into this league?
They weren't all
hopefully,
injured.
Even if the restrictions are in place, they'll put something closer to that team out.
Well, they've got a home game coming up. And what have they got? What is it?
The Happy Mondays.
Put the Happy Mondays in the pack. Let's see how they get on. They're probably paying them more than they're paying the players.
That would set off a whole other kettle of fish, wouldn't it? Right, rounding off the weekend, one more game to talk about. We had the Battle of the Borough, or Borough if you're from America, as we found out on Thursday night. Sunday we had the Battle of the Burgesses, Tom versus Sam, and actually I thought Huddersfield had a pretty decent fist of that game, Carl, for most of it.
Yeah, they did. It was pretty competitive, wasn't it? Until towards the back end of it. You know, Matt Duffy getting a nice little solo try, a little neat kick through that he did. But yeah, I mean, the little bit. I like the little bit the story that both Sam and his brother had about whoever wins has to do the bungee jump. And,
I hope they keep that to the end of the season.
Yeah, I hope it's a strong bungee cord as well, because there's two big boys there, aren't they? But look, it was Warrington came out on top and have started their season brightly.
Right, up and running in the Betfred Super League then, already loads of storylines, loads of little bits to go at. The Salford situation aside, I thought 5 out of 6 of those games, I thought it was an excellent start.
Yeah.
Thursday, as we've talked about, was fantastic. All of it to come. I love this time of year, but you've got the full season just laid out in front of you, all those storylines that you don't know about yet. So up and running for 2025. But a couple of weeks before the start of the season, the champions, the all-conquering Wigan Warriors, had some special guests come down to training.
Great group, really tight. You can see how good the team spirit is between the lads. As soon as you walk in, how welcoming they was, and it's nice to come over here and see the work that they do. And I'm sure I'll be keeping a close eye on them from now to when the season starts in February.
Coming to see the training firsthand is amazing. Obviously, it's a very physical sport, and we play a physical sport, but it's to come here and see this is totally different level. But no, brilliant. Yeah, it was a great atmosphere from the minute we walked in the door, and you can tell by how they are around each other. You can see why they're winning a lot, and I hope they continue that next season.
Standing here around the best player in the world at the moment, the best team in the world. So first of all, it's a big privilege. I'm proud of what the guys are doing.
Fancy playing rugby league?
Not against them. I can try with my friend at home, but not against these guys because they are the best.
Wigan are very, very special. I mean, they win everything the way they've been playing over the last few years. And, you know, we've been sponsoring rugby nearly 10 years now. The rugby family is special. And what I love about it, them players go down, they get up, there's no whinging, no moaning. I love to see the fans together. It's a brilliant game. Football can learn from it.
Yeah, great to see Wigan Warriors opening their doors to Manchester United. That's caused loads of talk and views, so really good for the sport. Let's turn our attention onto round 2, which is going to be even better for the sport, because we've got 6 belting games on the menu. Thursday night, the Betfred Super League returns to the DIY Kitchen Stadium. It's a very different place to where it was the last time we had Betfred Super League action there, Kyle. And Wakefield will go into that again against Hull KR, winding their sails. Big night there. It'll be a pretty special occasion, I thought. Yeah,
look, I mean, I just think back to my time when I played, and both with and against Wakefield. You know, when I was a player at Wakefield, we knew that teams would come and just test the water, you know, with the old changing rooms, and you kind of had a little bit of a psychological advantage as of such, but you had to ultimately perform and make the opposition feel uncomfortable in that. And I think that's exactly what they'll try and do. Hull KR again off the back of a win. I don't know if we can call it a decent win for them given where they are, but a win it was. Sorry. And I just think that, you know, we mentioned Matt Ellis and his family and what that journey for Wakefield, him being a local lad and getting his side back up to Super League. New stand that's in there that's looking the part. I think it'll be a big night. I think he'll have one or two things to say, whether that gets through to the players or he certainly will want a big occasion, put it that way.
It is an interesting one from a Hull KR perspective, Eddie, because obviously beating grand finalists last season, people expecting them to be thereabouts this year, and they fell over the line a little bit in round 1. It's round 1, it happens, but they'll want to put performances.
Well, they will. They got the win. That was the most important thing for them last weekend. But maybe their preparation will be a little bit wobbly after that. I mean, Mikey Lewis was the difference between the two sides at the end, wasn't he, with his drop goal? And he should be. He's the man of steel, for goodness sake. But, they go to Wakefield. I'm sure I've read somewhere that somebody has thrown a challenge down to Hull Kingston Rovers and said, it's not going to be all that easy coming to our place. Well, it won't be. It certainly won't be. And I'm sure that after the win last week, Wakefield, they must post a massive Super League crowd for this visit. Must do. It'd be very interesting to see who comes out on top in that. It really will.
Prediction?
Golden Point. But we waited 4 months and two came along in the one weekend.
No, I think Hull KR. I think Wakefield will take a number of scalps along the way. I still see them as a club that will take scalps, Eddie. I don't put them up there, just because they've built a squad. I think there's a progression in a couple of seasons before they can really sort of be truly classed as sort of playoff title contenders. So I think Hull KR will win that one.
This next game we're going to talk about has a very different complexion to it than what it would have done if we were having this conversation 7 days ago. Hull FC versus the Wigan Warriors, Eddie, and not many people had Wigan getting beat on opening night, and even less people probably had Hull FC going to Catalans and getting a win.
Absolutely. Two surprises, two big surprises for me in the opening weekend. And of course they meet, don't they, in the Challenge Cup in the last 16. And it's a repeat of that fantastic final we had at Wembley. Kenny and Sterling final. I mean, I always think about that. It's one of the great days that I can remember, and I do have a memory that goes back that far for the time being. But I mean, again, big crowd, huge crowd. Wigan will travel. Hull will have a real dig. I'm sure, as I say, John Cartwright. He's got them going. He obviously has got them going. It's only the first week, and they're having a dig. And Wigan. They lost narrowly, we know. They lost Golden Point extra time, we know, but they didn't look the Wigan of 2024 to me. French was quiet, Field was quiet. They were snuffed out last weekend. They probably now stand up and have the game of their lives this week to prove everybody wrong, as they always go. In Sember, he puts himself about, doesn't he? He's the new superstar of Wigan. I think Wigan have got a little bit of a point to prove this weekend against Hull FC.
Will they prove it?
I think I think Hull might win. I think with that crowd behind them, I think Hull just might win.
I tell you what a start it would be for the Black and Whites. If they could go to Catalan and chalk that off, and then they can chalk off the champions within 2 games, that is a very, very impressive start. However, I don't think Wigan Warriors lose. I don't. It's very rare that people or teams that win the league or that win the grand final, it's very rare they lose back-to-back in the Super League, and I think it's a real sort of yardstick for where Hull FC are at. I think if they can win that one, I think there's an almighty wave of belief and confidence that comes in here, and I think Matty Pete will be fully aware of the challenge ahead, and I expect Wigan, if they are to replicate and go on and chase down a 3rd Super League title, then they must win this game.
What a start it'd be for Hull FC. What a start it'd be for the round if Eddie's predictions start coming through. Golden Point and then Hull FC with the upset. You'd spoil us, Eddie.
Yeah, well, it would be a remarkable day if my predictions come true. So, there we go.
Another unique moment for Betfred Super League on Friday night. We're off to the Luke Littler Stadium for Warrington versus Catalans. It's brilliant, isn't it? It's a bit fun. It's raised loads of PR and positive talk about it, but a big game for Catalans and an opportunity for Warrington to continue the steady momentum from round 1.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think firstly from a Warrington perspective, I'm led to believe Luke Littler's going to lead the team out or parade his trophy, and as a proud Warringtonian, is that how you say?
Well, I live there. Yeah. I wasn't born there, but I live there.
Right. Well, look, it's important that the big days are celebrated in the town, and they've got a world champion there, and who's a season ticket holder at Warrington. So I think it's brilliant, and fair play to Carl Fitzpatrick for getting it sorted out, and yeah, it'll be no doubt a really good atmosphere in the town.
It will. I'm sure it will be, and people are already talking about it. The world champion is there, which is fantastic. I mean, he's 18 for goodness sake.
Yeah.
I think the Herns do a fantastic job with darts. I mean, darts now is probably behind the Premier League. Even netball's catching up. I think darts is probably Sky's 2nd most important sport at the minute. I really do.
He's a superstar, isn't he?
And at 18, and he's developing more and more. And this, he'll love this because he is a Warrington lad.
He plays in their colours, doesn't he?
He plays in the colours of the team. One of the local pubs has got him. The local garage has got him sponsored. His face is plastered all over the town. Good on him, and good on Warrington for getting on board with him, because Catalan always, they don't bring anybody, so it's always a struggle for anybody who plays Catalan to get a good crowd. They'll have a good crowd for this on Friday. Absolutely. They really will.
Will he be celebrating a win at the Luke Littler Stadium, Carl?
I think so, yeah, I think he will. Again, I think Warrington are Under Sam Burgess, they've certainly improved. I'm not sure whether they'll go on and win the grand final, but they are certainly contenders as well, aren't they? And I think Catalan, I don't think they answer the questions that have been over them the last 2 weeks at the, I nearly said the Halliwell Jones, but at the Littler Stadium, I don't.
Come on, Kyle. Warrington's year. You could be the first to say it in 2025.
Look,
come on.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
It's only 70 years since the last one.
Right, moving on to Saturday, and predictions go out the window at this point because goodness knows what we're going to get on Saturday afternoon. We are going to get the Happy Mondays at the Salford Community Stadium, Kyle. So will the Salford Red Devils be twisting their melons, or are Leeds Rhinos going to step on?
You've been waiting for that one, haven't you? No, look, I think if Salford are at full tilt, they'll beat Leeds. I think Salford's edges are some of the best in the competition. I think they've got three. I think they've got three of the best centres in the game. I think obviously Jake Wardle being one who I really like. I love what Tim Laffey do in Eastern Masters. I think they're and of course Nene McDonald. They are quality centres, and I think for Salford, if they can match anybody's middle, they're confident that they'll win the game due to the threat that they have out there. But again, what squad are we going to see? I don't know.
Well, Eddie, Leeds are preparing for a game where they have literally no idea who they're going to be playing. But it's a big week for them internally because they've got to put things right.
They have, and it's a difficult week for them because, as you say, they don't know what on earth they're going to face. I hope that the players play who should play for Salford. Okay, politics aside, it's got nothing to, as far as I'm concerned, I'm now a fan. I want to see the best out there on the field. I'm sure all the fans do. Those Salford fans who went to St Helens last week, in my opinion, they deserve a refund. They really do deserve a refund. They stuck there, and the kids who played, God love them, they kept going till the end. They did their very, very best. I'll take nothing away from them. But Salford, for their first home game of the season, a game like this with the Happy Month, they've got to play their first team. What 1.2 million was surely covered. Well, look what they played against the Midlands Hurricanes. Yeah. There was 13 of them didn't play last week. They've got to at least play and try and get the best possible start to their home programme that they can.
Definitely. Probably you should have mentioned it when we were speaking about the situation earlier. The Salford fans at St Helens at the weekend were
unbelievable.
They were brilliant.
Support them for 80 minutes. Absolutely fantastic. We'll move on quickly because we are running out of time. Kyle, St Helens, Castleford, interesting game again off the back of last weekend. I mean, we've not learned loads about Saints.
Yeah.
We've learned that Castleford are going to be perhaps stiffer opposition than we thought they would.
Yeah, no. Again, I think Castleford get a lot out of that loss to Hull KR. I think it's. I think there's things that they're going to have to be better at. One concern that I have about St Helens is that they've started the season at West Hull, and then they've pretty much played another amateur side. So while everything's great and they've been scoring 38 points in a cup game in 82. Are they almost, some of those players who perhaps, and I'm thinking more to the guys that they've brought in, Kyle Felt, Tristan Saylor, are they almost going to be thinking that this is that easy, that they're going to go to Castleford and get a really,
they've not been putting under pressure.
Exactly, Eddie, and that's what and we've seen over the years. You only need 3 or 4 players when you go to a ground like Castleford or Wakefield or Hull KR in the past or whatever. You only need a couple of them just not quite where they need to be, and then they come into a bit of trouble. Now that's. I'm sure Paul Wellens will have that message across to his players that they are going to prepare for a very, very difficult game. But that is a concern, how the way that they've got to round 2 without really having not even a glove, a finger landed on them.
Prediction.
Having said all that, Saints.
Right.
Well, I hope Castleford have got Tex Hoy doing a bit of goal kicking this week in training.
Oh yeah.
They could have won 2. Eddie, Lee, Huddersfield, who wins it, how and why?
Lee, because of Derek. Now, Lee are tremendous. I mean, Adrian Lachlan Lamb, they're great to watch. They got the win last week. They'll be cock-a-hoop, they really will. I thought Huddersfield performed really well, actually, in the first game. I really did. But I think Lee, they'll be bouncing, won't they? Yeah. They will. I keep calling it Hilton Park. It's not Hilton Park anymore. It's Lee Sports Village.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Lee for me will win that. And I feel a bit that I shouldn't be saying that because I like Luke Robinson so much. I think he's a cracking little fellow, I really do, and he's full of enthusiasm. And he got his team to play a bit, didn't he, last weekend? But they just came up short. But Lee for me.
Yeah, they're all interesting, aren't they? Round 2 in the Betfred Super League, and of course, round 3 next week. Viva Las Vegas.
Live from Vegas on a Saturday night. Viva Rugby League. Kaboom! There's your magic show, folks.
Yeah, we are off to Las Vegas. Make a note, next week's Last Tackle will come on Thursday night at 6 o'clock rather than Wednesday, because we will be coming from the entertainment capital of the world. The Super League takes on Las Vegas. It's going to be 25 degrees. Gents, I'll send you a picture from the side of the pool.
Oh, I thought you were going to give us our
eh?
airline tickets. We were ready for that, weren't we, Kyle? We're ready for the trip.
I'll have to unpack now, won't I?
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. Make a note of that slightly different day. Thursday night, 6 o'clock. We will see you from Las Vegas ahead of that belting weekend of Rugby League. But before then, we've got a belter on the cards in this country. Round 2 of the Betfred Super League. Gents, absolute pleasure to have you back. Great to be back in the studio. Great to have the Betfred Super League back. And we will see you next week from Nevada.
This is my time.